Good morning, students. The next topic in Islamiyat is the UMRAH that was performed by Muslims and the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So, ready yourself now. In March 629, the month of the Hajj, it was time for Muhammad ﷺ to lead pilgrimage to Kaaba. This time, 2,600 pilgrims accompanied him, and as they approached the sanctuary, the Quraysh evacuated the city as they had agreed. The Quraysh watched the arrival of the Muhammad ﷺ and his companions from the top of a nearby mountain. The sound of the Muslims loudly announcing their presence with the traditional cry, "Here I am, O Allah, here I am," must have echoed through the valleys and the empty streets of the city. Quraysh must have been impressed by the discipline of the Muslims. There were no scenes of the unbridled joy or unseemly celebrations. On jeering at the Quraysh, instead of huge crowd of the pilgrims filed slowly and solemnly into the city, led by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was, as usual, was mounted on the Kaswa. When he sallallahu alaihi wasallam reached the Kaaba, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam dismounted and kissed the black stone, embracing it, and then proceeded to make the circumambulation, followed by the entire pilgrim body. It was a strange homecoming. The emigrants must have felt highly emotional about their return. It had been settled at Hudaybiyah that this year the Muslims could only make the lesser pilgrimage, that is the Umrah, which did not include a visit to Mount of Arafat and the Valley of the Mina. So this was decided not to visit these two places, but to only visit the Holy Kaaba. In temporary exile from their city, the Quraysh had to watch, no doubt appalled, as Bilal, a former slave, climbed onto the roof of the Kaaba and summoned the Muslims to prayer 3 times a day. His huge voice reverberated through the valley, urging all within earshot to come to Salat with the cry, "Allahu Akbar," reminding them that Allah was greater than all the idols in the haram, who could do nothing to prevent this ritual humiliation. It was an immense triumph from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and many of the younger Quraysh became even more convinced that the old religion was doomed. Suhail came down to inform Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that their 3 days were up and they should leave immediately. Saad ibn Ubaidah, a chief of the Khazraj, who was with the Prophet ﷺ at that time, was furious at this apparent discourtesy, but Muhammad ﷺ quickly silenced him. "O Saad, no ill words to those who have come to visit us in our camp." So this was the courtesy word. These were the courtesy words by the Holy Prophet ﷺ. But on the part of the Quraysh, they were discourteous. To the astonishment to the Quraysh, the entire pilgrim throng left the city that night in good order. There were no loud protests, no attempt to repossess their old homes, because they were their homes, and these were captured by the Quraysh after the exile of the Muslims to Medina. But Muslims did not capture their old homes again. The story of this strange pilgrimage spread rapidly, and more of the Bedouin came to Medina to become Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's confederates. Of even greater significance was the steady stream of the younger generation of the Quraysh who converted to Islam, because they have seen the excellent religion on Muslims' visit to Mecca. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had promised to return new converts to Mecca, but had been able to find a loophole that enabled him to overcome this condition on a technicality. First, the treaty had said nothing about the handing back of the woman converts because there was a point in the treaty of handing back the men, not of women. So this was a loophole in the treaty of the treaty with the Makkans. So shortly after Hudaybiyah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had received Usman's half sister into Ummah and allowed her to remain because there was no condition to handing back the woman. He did, however, return Abu Basir, an impetuous young man, and dispatched him to Mecca with Quraysh envoy. But during the journey, Abu Basir killed his escort, and when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent him away again, set up camp on the Red Sea coast near the trade route, where he was joined by 70 other young Meccans malcontents. These would-be Muslims became highwaymen, attacking every single Meccan caravans that came within their range, and the Quraysh discovered that the economic blockade had been partially reinstated. Eventually, they were forced to beg Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to admit the young men into Medina and to make them abide by the treaty. So this was another loophole because these young men didn't live in Medina because that was the condition that in the treaty to handing back the men. So they lived outside the Medina and attacked any caravan that was coming from the Mecca to Syria or Syria to Mecca and attack them. So when they see their economic damage, they requested the Holy Prophet ﷺ to take them into Medina so they came, so they can come into some authority. So the ban on accepting converts became a dead letter. And in 629, a steady stream of the new Muslims arrived in Medina. They included the young warriors Amr ibn al-As and Khalid bin Walid. So that was a big blow to Meccans because these two were the young warriors. In this year of political triumph, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had a private joy. None of the women he had married in Medina had borne him any children, but the governor of the Alexandria in Egypt had sent him a slave girl as a gift. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam married her, and at the end of the 629, she became pregnant. He named their son Ibrahim. So that was a big news. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's daughter Zainab had died shortly after he made the lesser pilgrimage, and later that year he lost two members of his family in a disastrous expedition to the Syrian border. So this is the topic. So make your notes. Thank you so much.